The first time I got arrested for possession of a controlled substance, I was shoved into the back of a NYPD police car with two other guys, and it was very, very uncomfortable. So the next time it happened, a couple of years later, it was a whole different experience. I had just bought a controlled substance, and this time, one of the brand new vans the NYPD had gotten pulled up, and two cops got out, and one of them said, "Hey, you." And of course, I looked around and I said, "Who, me?" And he says, "Yeah, you, come here. We just saw you buying drugs." And I said, I think you're mistaken, officer. But the cop said something into his radio, and I heard over the radio, "Look in his watch pocket." And he looked in my watch pocket, and there it was. And they smacked me in the head and handcuffed me, and they threw me in the back of the van. So I was the third guy that had arrested. And these vans were great. It was like a nice big seat in the back, and I got to sit by the window, and it was a totally different experience. It was very comfortable, and I got to watch them drive around and pick up other people until they filled up the van. And, you know, it was interesting. At any rate, they filled the van, and then they parked somewhere because they had to wait for the operation to wind up. So we're all sitting there. There were, I think, 8 of us, all handcuffed, and nobody was talking in the van because nobody really wants to talk when they're sitting handcuffed in the back of a police van. But the cops were sitting up front and, you know, chatting with themselves, and one cop says to the other, "Who ran against Kennedy in 1960? And the other cop says, "I think it was Humphrey." He goes, "No, couldn't have been Humphrey." And he goes, "Was it Johnson?" He goes, "Johnson was his vice president." Now, this was in 1990, and these guys weren't much younger than I. And I just said, "These guys are really stupid." So finally, from the back of the van, I just yelled out, I said, "It was Nixon." And nobody said a word. And then one cop looks at the other cop and he goes, "You know, it was Nixon." He says, "Yeah, you're right." But everybody else is quiet. Nobody laughed, you know, and we're just sitting there. And then the operation started to wind down, and they started getting calls over the radio. And I hear over the radio, "Car number 1, got any handcuffs left?" Negative. Then I hear again, "Car number 2, do you have any handcuffs left?" It was the sergeant running the operation. Negative, Sarge. And then, "Car number 4, any handcuffs left?" Negative, Sarge. Then they call our car. "Car number 5, any handcuffs left?" Negative, Sarge. So I sensed an opportunity. And from the back of the van, I said, "Tell the sergeant he can have my handcuffs." Then everybody laughed. And the cop who's laughing keys his radio and goes, "Hey, Sarge, one of these assholes says we can have his handcuffs." And over the radio I hear, "Negative." And lucky for me, that was the second time and the last time I got to sit in the back of a police car.